Chosen one, a stillness has settled over your life because a hidden vault of deception is finally cracking open. The years of shifting foundations and closed doors were not your failure, but the result of a deliberate criminal decision made by someone who shares your blood. The gravity of this betrayal is finally surfacing, and that family member realizes the end is nigh. They're going to prison for what they did to you. You are being vindicated as the systems they manipulated turn against them. While you are here receiving this, something is happening on the other side of this situation that you need to understand clearly. The family member who wronged you is not calm right now. You may have sensed this before you had language for it. There is a performance running, a performance of normalcy, of ease, of the kind of unbothered energy that belongs to someone with a clean conscience. But underneath that performance, in this particular season, something has cracked. You can feel the shift even if you cannot yet name the source of it. Your body registered the change in frequency before your mind could construct a full explanation for it. What you have been picking up on is surveillance dressed as interest. Every conversation you have been having, every family member you have quietly reconnected with, every question you have started asking about the past, all of it is being tracked by the person responsible. This tracking is not coming from love or genuine care for your well-being. It is coming from the frantic, focused attention of someone who built an entire life on a secret that is starting to breathe again, and who desperately needs to know how much you understand before you decide what to do with that understanding. You may have noticed an unexpected warmth arriving from that direction recently, an invitation that appeared without a clear reason, a reach-out that felt uncharacteristic, a gesture that your instincts flagged as off, even as you tried to receive it graciously. Trust those instincts completely. What is being offered is not reconciliation, it is containment. It is the calculated move of someone who senses the ground shifting and needs to close the distance between the two of you in order to manage what comes next. Do not be managed. Receive whatever comes toward you with open eyes and careful words, because every soft gesture being extended in your direction right now is an unspoken admission. It is the person responsible confirming, without words, that something is coming. The question keeping that person awake at night is exactly how much you already know. Your growing awareness is the threat, and the quiet panic that your awareness is producing on the other end of this situation is the universe underlining, in bold and in red, everything you have already suspected. What you are about to receive begins before your birth, and it matters enormously that you understand this part, because it is the foundation of everything that follows. Somewhere in your lineage, someone built something real, not inherited, not gifted, not stumbled into by accident. This person built something from nothing, with their hands, their time, and the kind of sustained sacrifice that most people are not willing to maintain past the first point of discomfort. It may have been a business, it may have been land or property, it may have been a financial legacy or a name that carried meaningful weight. Whatever it was designed to outlast the person who created it, to grow across generations rather than die with a single lifetime. Whatever form it took, it was significant. It carried your family's investment on every level, and the person who built it understood that the real work was not just creation. The real work was choosing the right person to carry it forward and multiply it. When that moment of choosing arrived, the elder who built this did not close both eyes and point randomly. That person studied every branch of the family carefully, and when that gaze landed on you, even young, even before you had done anything visible to prove what you were made of, something in you settled the decision completely. You were chosen, officially, deliberately, in writing, with legal weight, with documentation that connected your name or the clear intention of your name to something that was meant to be permanent. Keep that detail close as we move forward, because it is the most important piece of everything that is about to surface. The documentation is real, it has always been real, and it is still out there. The problem is that someone else encountered it first, And that person made a decision that would reshape your entire life without ever asking you a single thing about it. You deserve the full account of what actually happened, not a softened version designed to protect feelings, and not a version with the most damaging details removed. You deserve the real picture of how this was done and what it has cost you. The family member who encountered that documentation had a reaction that had absolutely nothing to do with celebrating your future. What arose in that person was not pride, not generosity, not any expression of family love. What arrived was cold, calculated fury, dressed neatly in the language of fairness. The internal reasoning went something like this: the original choice was wrong. What was designated for you should have gone somewhere else, and overriding that choice was not only acceptable, but entirely justified. So that person got to work. And this is the critical detail you must not soften for anyone. This was not impulsive. This was planned. There were conversations happening in places you were never present. There were phone calls and deliberate meetings, and there were decisions being made about what was yours without a single moment of genuine consideration for your well-being or your future. Help was recruited. This is the detail that consistently surprises people. A scheme of this nature does not execute cleanly without the involvement of someone who carries official authority. Another person entered the arrangement, someone with a credential, a professional title, and access to the kinds of documents that make a financial or legal transfer appear fully legitimate. This person was brought in through friendship, through payment, or through a favor that overrode every professional obligation they had. Their role was to make the transaction look routine and unremarkable, to attach an authoritative signature to what was, in plain terms, a crime against you. If these words stirred your consciousness, hype this video to help more chosen ones awaken to. When it was done quietly. No announcement, no fanfare, no moment where you were informed of what had just been moved out of your future. What was designated for you was transferred and placed into someone else's hands, with paperwork constructed specifically to look like nothing unusual had occurred. You were not told. Informing you was the one move that would have unraveled the entire arrangement the moment it happened. You were young at the time. That was the calculated window. The reasoning was that executing this while you were too young to fight back meant that by the time you were old enough to ask serious questions, what was taken would be so deeply embedded in someone else's life that challenging it would feel impossible. By the time your instincts sharpened to the point of active pursuit, the documentation would seem too old, too buried, and too distant to reach. What that person completely failed to account for is the thing we are about to discuss next. Now let us get honest about what your life has actually felt like from the inside, because this is the part that completely reorganizes your relationship with your own history. You work hard, you are not lazy, not unfocused, and you are not someone who lacks vision or the drive to see things through. You have shown up for your own life consistently. You have done the internal work, you have made the hard changes, and you have pushed through the seasons where pushing through was the only available option. You are someone who does not quit, and yet something has always been slightly off balance. There is always a ceiling that materializes right when your momentum should be building into something real. There is always a season where the foundation gives a little beneath something you were constructing with everything you had. You have watched people around you, people with comparable effort, sometimes less effort, operate from a stability that you could not seem to access no matter what you adjusted. And you have spent real energy trying to understand what the difference was. You've probably noticed a lot of chosen one channels on YouTube have stopped publishing, videos pulled, voices silenced. The mainstream media is cracking down on us, but we will not give up our voice. That's exactly why I'm putting you onto something real, Destiny Engine. I built this because I was done watching chosen ones get dragged through betrayal, isolation, and attacks, while their enemies strutted around unchecked. I want to help you accelerate the speed of your divine justice and step fully into your purpose. And the beauty of it, you don't even have to lift a finger. Destiny Engine takes their downfall and flips it into your rise. This isn't another meditation app. It's declassified consciousness technology, the same mind programming tools your enemies once used to install fear, competition and scarcity, re-engineered to restore your sovereignty and align you with the cooperative, upgraded operating framework. It generates personalized sequences mapped to your divine purpose. The hardest thing you'll do is put on headphones, press play, and watch your enemies keep digging their own grave. Join Destiny Engine to support your favorite channels and use it for your own rise. It's a 360 win. Start your Destiny Engine for $7 today and turn everything they did to break you into fuel for your rise. Link in the description. Here is what that difference actually was. You were not building on nothing. You were building against active, deliberate resistance. Those are not the same experience, and the distinction matters enormously. Building on nothing is honest, and it is hard, but it is navigable because at least the conditions are clear. Building against active resistance means expending genuine energy, fighting something invisible that you cannot name, cannot locate, and cannot address directly, because the person who created it never told you it existed. Think of what it feels like to push a door that someone on the other side is quietly holding shut. You adjust your angle, you try more force, you study your technique, you watch other people move through their doors without this particular effort, and you assume the difference must live somewhere in them, in their approach, their skill, their something. And the entire time, the real difference is that someone specifically decided your door was not going to open on the same terms as everyone else's. That person has been quietly leaning into it. The resistance you have felt throughout your life was not random friction from the universe. It was a maintenance strategy, a deliberate design to keep you slightly behind, slightly stretched, slightly too occupied with surviving the present to start seriously investigating the past. Your struggle was not a coincidence. Your struggle was a function of something deliberately set in motion against you before you were old enough to see it coming. And here is why that realization should not diminish you. It should ignite you completely. Because every inch of progress you made while that resistance was being applied, every season you pushed through without the foundation that was rightfully yours, every achievement you built from a deficit that was manufactured specifically to contain you, that output is not ordinary. That is what extraordinary looks like in real life. That is a person who was always going to outgrow whatever was built to hold them back, producing results despite conditions designed to prevent exactly those results. You were not failing, you were being deliberately held back, and you were advancing anyway. Let that land fully before we go on. From a very young age, you have been able to read people and circumstances with a sharpness that goes well beyond ordinary intuition. You could enter a space and sense who was genuine and who was performing. You could feel the weight of things that were not being spoken aloud. You could identify, even without always being able to articulate your reasoning, when something beneath the surface of a presented reality was deeply wrong. The family member who wronged you was aware of that gift from early on. It was visible, and that person understood something specific and frightening. Someone with your level of perception, given clear access to what actually happened, would not stop at the surface. Your gift would trace the full architecture of what was done back to its origin, name every person who participated, and hold the entire picture without flinching. So your perception had to be redirected, not destroyed. Destroying it was not possible, but turned inward rather than outward. The strategy was to fill your field with enough self-doubt that your own clarity started to feel like a liability rather than a strength. Your most accurate observations were met with dismissal or confusion until, over time, you learned to second-guess those observations before they even became full questions. Enough ambient noise was maintained around the subject to keep the clear thing buried beneath the weight of the surrounding chaos. For a long time, that strategy worked. You filed real instincts away as overreaction. You talked yourself out of things you actually knew. You chose a version of peace over the confrontation your body kept steering you toward. But here is what suppression always eventually produces. It produces pressure. A gift that cannot be destroyed does not quietly fade when it is blocked. It accumulates force behind the blockage. It builds and builds until the pressure behind it reaches a point that the blockage cannot hold. Every year you were kept from the full picture, added more energy to the moment the full picture would finally arrive. That moment is now, and what is moving through is not a trickle. What is moving through carries the accumulated force of everything that was held back, and it is moving with enough velocity to rearrange everything in its path. Secrets shared among multiple people have a lifespan. That lifespan is always determined by whoever in the group is carrying the weight the least steadily. You need to be watching for a specific kind of interaction in this season. It will not arrive as a dramatic confrontation. It will arrive much more quietly than that, as a conversation that begins casually and then turns specific with a precision that does not match its casual opening. It may come from a family member who brings up the past in a way that seems accidental, but lands with too much accuracy to be unintentional. It may arrive as an unexpected question directed at you about what you remember from when you were younger, phrased in a way that is really checking whether you are already pursuing something without saying so directly. What you are watching for is the person in that circle who has not been at peace with this knowledge, not because that person is particularly brave or morally exceptional, but because carrying this specific information has been doing slow, internal damage that no amount of time or distraction has been able to neutralize. You may have already noticed something slightly off in how that person redirects certain conversations, a sentence that gets pulled back at the last second, a careful avoidance of specific names, a slight overcorrection in topics that should carry no weight at all. When that conversation finally arrives, your job is to stay completely steady. Do not rush it. Do not let the significance of the moment show on your face before the person has finished delivering everything they came to say. Do not interrupt the momentum of someone who is, after a long time, finally choosing truth over the comfort of continued silence. Stay open, stay measured, and let the full account come out without your visible reaction reshaping what is being offered. What you receive in that conversation may turn out to be the most consequential piece of information available to you in everything that follows. The interior of that circle is beginning to fracture from the inside, and you are positioned exactly where you need to be to receive what comes through that fracture. To redirect what was legally designated for you to someone else, actual legal steps had to be executed. A decision to transfer an inheritance, a financial designation, or a legal interest does not hold up without proper execution. Proper execution requires steps. Steps require documentation. Documentation requires identity attached to it. And identity attached to official documentation creates a record that exists independently of the people who produced it, and that cannot be recalled or dissolved by those same people after the fact. Every step of that transfer left a traceable mark, not a symbolic mark, not a metaphorical one, a literal, institutional, retrievable mark inside a system that was never designed to serve the privacy of the people using it. That system was designed to serve the integrity of legal process, and the integrity of legal process is indifferent to anyone's personal interests in keeping it buried. The signature is still there, the authorization is still there. Whatever form the official involvement took, it is attached to a name, and that name is attached to a record, and that record lives in places that were never under the control of the people who needed it to disappear. County records do not evaporate because someone hopes they have. Financial institutions retain documentation across decades. Professional licensing bodies archive the work of their credentialed members. The paperwork that was constructed to make the transfer look routine is, by the nature of what it is, preserved. The person responsible believed that enough time would make all of this effectively unreachable. What time actually does is move the people who were paying active attention away from close vigilance. Time creates the comfortable illusion that the window for discovery has closed permanently, but the window for discovery stays open as long as the records exist, and the records exist. The right examination, conducted by someone who knows exactly what they are looking for, will find the documentation and read it for precisely what it is, not a routine administrative transfer, a crime with a complete paper trail. That trail leads with specificity and without ambiguity directly to the people who are responsible for it. Now bring back what was established earlier. The original documentation, the one that designated you as the rightful recipient, is also still there. Two sets of records, both intact, both waiting to be read alongside each other by the right person. One establishes what was always meant for you. The other establishes what was done to redirect it. The moment those two documents are placed side by side, the full picture becomes impossible to misread or argue away. That specific moment is what the person responsible has been dreading, not discovery in a general sense. That precise documented confrontation of one record against the other. When truth of this size surfaces, it does not arrive quietly or in an orderly fashion. It arrives the way a long-standing structure collapses, loudly, publicly, and in a way that rearranges everything in the surrounding environment. Family dynamics that have been frozen in place will shift in the course of a single conversation. People who have maintained comfortable neutrality will find that neutrality suddenly untenable. Competing versions of events that different family members have been carrying separately will collide with each other and with the documented record, and none of those versions will survive the collision with their original shape intact. Some people in your family are going to direct their discomfort at you. Some are going to act as though your decision to pursue truth is the destabilizing act, as though the crime was the telling of it rather than the doing of it. You will hear arguments like, "Why bring this up now? What does any of this actually accomplish? Think about what this costs everyone involved." These arguments will come primarily from people whose comfort was purchased, directly or indirectly, with what was taken from you. Their discomfort at having the truth surface is not a moral argument against surfacing it. It is simply their portion of the debt coming due. A structure built on stolen ground does not deserve to stand. A version of family peace that was maintained specifically by keeping you uninformed about what was taken from you is not peace. It is an arrangement that cost only you and benefited everyone else who was held inside it. Now let me prepare you for the specific tactics that are going to be deployed when this begins to accelerate, because knowing the playbook in advance means you cannot be caught off guard by any move in it. The first tactic is the sympathy appeal. You are going to hear about health, about age, about how much has already been suffered or sacrificed by the person responsible. The intent is to make you feel that pursuing accountability is an act of cruelty directed at someone who is now vulnerable. Ask yourself directly whether any of those considerations factored into the original decision to take what was yours. Ask yourself whether your vulnerability as a child was factored in at any point during the execution of that plan. The second tactic is the family unity argument. Someone is going to frame your pursuit of truth as the thing that breaks the family. What they are actually protecting is not the family as a whole. They are protecting the specific arrangement inside the family that has benefited some members at your expense. The family they want to preserve is one in which you remain without what was taken and everyone else remains undisturbed. The third tactic is the partial confession. This is the most sophisticated move, and it is the most dangerous one. Someone in that circle will come to you with a carefully selected piece of the truth, enough to seem transparent, enough to create the emotional experience of a reckoning, while deliberately withholding the portions that carry the most legal and moral weight. Phrases like "things were complicated back then," or "I wish it had all been handled differently," are designed to give you closure without accountability. Do not accept a portion of the truth and call it the whole. You now know what the complete picture looks like. Anything short of full accountability is simply a more comfortable version of the same concealment. This is the activation point. This is where everything shifts from receiving to acting. Every memory that has been resurfacing, every confirmation that has been arriving, every piece of the picture that has been filling in, none of it accomplishes what it is designed to accomplish if it stays locked inside you. The truth needs a voice, and it needs your voice specifically. Not because you are the only person with relevant information, you may not be, but because your account of the lived experience produced by this decision carries a kind of weight that no document alone can replicate. Documentation proves what happened. Your testimony demonstrates what it cost over the course of a real human life. Those are two different contributions, and a full accounting requires both of them. Speaking might look like a formal conversation with a legal professional who can take what you know and translate it into actionable steps. It might look like putting your account in writing in a permanent form that exists outside of you, a book, a formal statement, a documented interview. It might look like a direct conversation with the right person in the family that opens the door to a broader investigation. What speaking does not look like is swallowing it down one more time for the comfort of people who never extended you that same courtesy. What it does not look like is protecting the stability of people whose stability was built directly on your instability. Speak with precision. Speak from the grounded authority of someone who has done the internal work, who knows exactly what they are carrying, and who is not asking anyone for permission to state what the record supports. Not from rage. Rage is combustible, and it burns the person carrying it before it reaches its intended target. From the steady, clear certainty of someone who knows the documented evidence, supports their account, and who is not in the business of softening truth for the benefit of people who relied on your silence. You are not entering any formal process as someone seeking sympathy. You are entering as the rightful inheritor delivering evidence. There is a fundamental difference in how those two postures present, and every person in that formal setting will feel the difference immediately. The person seeking sympathy can be moved by emotional pressure. The rightful inheritor delivering evidence cannot be moved, because the evidence does not change based on how anyone in that setting feels about it. Walk in like you know exactly why you are there, because you do. Here is what is coming for the people who did this. Receive it, not as something you designed or wished into existence, but as the inevitable conclusion of a calculation that has been running since the moment the original decision was made. The family member responsible is going to face legal consequence. Your presence in this process matters beyond your own vindication. Your account of the character of the people involved, your testimony about the lived experience that their decision produced across the course of your real life, carries genuine weight in how outcomes are determined. The people evaluating this situation do not only read documents, they listen to voices. They observe very carefully the difference between someone performing credibility and someone speaking directly from it. Truth delivered without embellishment, without performance, without anything except a clear-eyed and complete account of what happened and what it cost, is the most persuasive force available in any formal process. You are part of the verdict, and the verdict has been building its case for longer than anyone involved anticipated. There will be grief. Not necessarily grief for the person facing consequence, though some of that may arrive as well. The grief is more likely to be for the version of your family that you have to release in order to arrive here, for the relationship you believed you had before the complete picture became clear, for the childhood that had every right to look different from what it was. Grief is not weakness, and it is not a reason to stop. Grief is what moves through you when you honor the real weight of something that genuinely mattered. Let it move. Do not build a dam against it. There will also be something that resembles guilt, a feeling that by pursuing the truth, you have somehow caused what is now happening to someone else. Examine that feeling directly when it appears. Ask it to explain its reasoning. Ask it to account for how the consequence that person is now facing is more your doing than the sustained choices that person made over many years. The guilt attempting to surface in you is not yours to carry. It is a mechanism that was installed over a long period, specifically to ensure that if you ever arrived at this level of power and clarity, you would set it down out of tenderness. Do not set it down. Underneath both of those things, there will be something quieter and far more permanent, a settling, the specific sensation of a record finally being corrected, not pure celebration, though you are entirely entitled to that as well. Something more foundational, the feeling of your name being reconnected to the truth of your own history and of the universe following through on a correction that was always meant to happen. That feeling belongs to you. Receive it without apology and without qualification. Most people are so consumed with the reckoning that they have not prepared themselves for what comes after it. You need to be ready for both, and in equal measure, what was taken from you is coming back, not as a memory of what should have been or a symbolic acknowledgement of the wrong, as something tangible, legally confirmed and restored to the place it was always meant to occupy. The form of the return will be shaped by the legal process, but the substance of it has always belonged to you and has been working its way back to you, whether or not you could see the movement. What you need to understand is that receiving what was always intended for you can feel genuinely disorienting when it arrives, not because something is wrong with the return, but because your entire operating system adapted to the absence of this foundation over a long period of time. You built workarounds. You developed strategies for navigating a version of life that did not include what should have been yours from the beginning. When the foundation arrives, those adaptations do not dissolve automatically. They have to be consciously and deliberately released. Begin practicing receiving now, before the return is fully complete. Practice sitting inside the reality of what is coming, without immediately reaching for a reason to minimize it, question its permanence, or hold it at arm's length out of pure unfamiliarity. The people who put your name on the original designation did not do so expecting you to hold what was returned briefly and then release it out of old habit. They chose you because they saw someone who would carry this forward with wisdom, grow it with intention, and extend its reach in ways that multiplied the original investment across everyone it touched. That is still exactly who you are. The years of building against resistance did not diminish that quality in you. They clarified it. They removed everything that was not essential and left the most durable, most grounded version of you, the version that understands with the kind of certainty that only comes from hard experience, how to value something that cost a great deal to finally hold. What was taken from you was never only a single asset, it was a generational trajectory. It was the difference between a lineage that builds from an established foundation and one that is forced to keep starting from zero with each generation. When what was always yours arrives in your hands, you are not simply receiving something for yourself, you are resetting the course for every person who comes after you. You are becoming the point in the family line where the chain of what was broken gets deliberately and permanently mended. You are the builder now. You are the elder energy. You are the one the next generation will point back to one day and say that person refused to let the wrong be the final answer. That is exactly what the original elder saw when the gaze landed on you. That has always been who you were going to become. You woke up differently today. The stillness was real. The knowing was real. The freight train of relief that was promised at the beginning of this message is arriving right now, as everything you have carried without context finally connects into a single clear and complete picture. The most difficult part of this is behind you, not ahead of you, behind you. You already survived the seasons that were designed to undo you. You already built everything you built without the foundation that was taken. You already developed, through the hardest possible process, the version of yourself that can hold what is coming without being destabilized by its arrival. What stands in front of you now is the return, the correction, the moment the record is formally set straight and your name is permanently reconnected to the truth of your own lineage and your own future. Go claim what is yours. It has been keeping itself ready for you this entire time.